Becoming a body of light. Today we're going to go a little bit deeper. Bear with the science lesson because it's going to take us to a glorious conclusion. Thoughts are quantum electromagnetic energy encased in protein. These proteins carry the chemical messages of our thoughts. Memories encoded with these chemical messages are also encoded with a specific emotion that accompanied the thought. Over time, the continuation of an emotional state creates an attitude. A long-held attitude will change our body, our facial features. It'll even create wrinkles. And as we have learned, our baseline personality can change. Have you ever wondered why a certain group of people look so much alike? They share the same paradigms, the same attitudes, and the same thoughts. Consequently, their facial muscles set to the baseline emotional state of their thoughts. Their faces begin to mirror their common attitudes. Their body language marches in sync like an army of determined soldiers. Unfortunately, once dug in, these attitudes interfere big time with clear thinking. Group consciousness creates a perception that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. Example of this is the recent report from the Public Religion Research Institute, which found that the percentage of white evangelicals who said they trusted the leadership of a politician who commits immoral acts rose from 30% in 2011 to 72% just this year. Can you believe it? 6 years ago, they would have never trusted a politician who was immoral. But now 70-some% say, yeah, well, let's just not even bother with that. That's his personal life. I just want to know his politics. And I'm not saying that's a good or bad thought. I am just saying, hello, you've changed? You've changed that much in 6 years that you allow something that in your best conscience you could have never allowed? Politics and religion are the great enemy to old friendships, because once allegiance is declared, one's brain cannot find a file to explain the truth right in front of their eyes. None of us are exempt from this condition, as long as we live with entrenched attitudes. That one kind of hits home. If we live in a baseline of fear, we live far below our potential, as fear actually interferes with critical thinking. Remember that old Bible verse, perfect peace cast out fear? I cannot tell you how many times I went to a zone of absolute calm when I worked the emergency shift in anesthesia at a level 1 trauma center. In that zone, all emotion stopped, except for that one moment when I looked into my patient's eyes. Just before they went to sleep, I wanted to assure them that we cared and that the person inside that body was important to us. I sought to alleviate their fear with compassion and composure, bringing them to the frequency of peace. A patient's fear will negatively affect their body's response to surgery. In fact, if a patient is certain that they're going to die during surgery, we canceled the case. It was the general consensus after years of observation that what a patient feared would be his outcome. And you hear that in life. Be careful what you fear, because that's what you're going to get. Be careful what you think. That's what you're going to get. My mother used to quote a particular Bible verse. She was a constant worrier and worn down by her sense of victimhood. If only my mother had realized the power inherent in the words, "Finally, my brothers, fix your thoughts on what is true and honorable, what is just and pure and commendable. Let your mind dwell on those things, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds. I like that Bible verse, Philippians 4:8. As we flood our minds with love and peace, we become a fine work of art, the masterpiece of divine source, reflecting its glory to the world. Quantum physics shows us that the universe is in a state of flux. Our thoughts change matter. Our thoughts create matter. The very act of observation and expectation changes the way the tiniest neutrino expresses. If a photon comes into existence a billion light years from here, it affects us to some degree. John Bell of Bell's theorem said there is an inseparable quantum connectedness of every part of the universe to every other part. Do you remember years ago, I don't remember who wrote it, but they said, if a butterfly flaps its wings half a world away, I can feel the rush of air. It's kind of a poetic way to say what Bell was telling us. As we grasp this concept, we are faced with the reality that all creation exists as one consciousness. Think that one over. All creation exists as one consciousness. Visualize for a moment the effect on our cosmos were we to spend a few moments each day interfacing our thoughts with the mind of God. I have no doubt that all of creation would sigh in relief as it is taken one step closer to the perfection our Creator designed and desires for us, but not imposes on us. For love, free love, is the only thing that creates the beauty in our life. We hear of more and more groups of individuals who have covenanted together to help the world. Their method is simple. At a specified time, they focus their attention on the powerful attributes of love and light. As individual fractals of Source, the combined frequency of these souls becomes a powerful force which cannot help but impact our world and our cosmos. I almost get the visualization of the migration of butterflies. This is prayers. Each butterfly is a prayer coming from some part of the world, and they're all headed for one spot in the world that desperately needs the power of our prayers. As each of us visualizes a world filled with light and kindness, we become the alchemist. I ask each of you listening to join this moment in an act of grace, sending the intent for peace in our nation, in our world. Because time wraps back on itself, I have no doubt that no matter when you say this prayer, it will join the hundreds of other voices with the same cry for peace. For just a moment, let's send our energy along with the waves of energy from others for peace in our nation, stability, kindness. Wow, that feels so much better than just being mad about it. Last night I watched The Voice. When a 16-year-old girl had completed her song, Adam Levine said, "For one moment you took me away from the craziness of the world and the fear it imputes on us." I needed that moment. I felt at peace. The world needs more of these moments. Thank you. The writer Magenta Pixie says that through sympathetic resonance or telepathic energetic resonance, as we shift, so do those around us. She is right, as we reset our thoughts, especially as we slip into mindful union with Source, our vibrational frequency will be raised to the point that we will unconsciously affect change wherever we go. In that frequency, we literally radiate a luminescence and we become like a walking tuning fork. Years ago, I read a devotional which told the story of a holy man who prayed, "God, I ask that everywhere I walk, people will experience miracles." Yeah, I'm with that. And then he said, "And God, I don't want to know. It is for your glory and not to mine." At the time I read this, I was not on board with the part about no personal glory. That one took a while. As we move closer to the frequency of the One who referenced himself as I am that I am, we are that walking tuning fork. And it is the law of physics that if two divergent vibrational rates are in the same proximity, one of three things must happen. If I'm in a state of peace, compassion, joy, or love, I hold a high frequency. Now it's possible that another's anger will lower my energy until I'm just as mad as they are. But that doesn't have to happen. That we learn in preschool to compromise. If I'm peaceful and you're angry, we can agree to disagree. We begin to vibrate at the same frequency, but neither one of us is really happy, but neither are we at odds. The life of Yeshua was that of one who never wavered in spite of what was going on around him. Like him, we can make the choice to remain in love and peace, not have our frequency tuned down to accommodate another's frequency. I have seen this played out so many times in the operating room when things got tense, when anxiety was overtaking the staff. Allow me one example. I was filling in at a new hospital when a crisis occurred in the OR. I remained in a place of peace. As I sat in my space of quiet observation, the shouting stopped. Things became calm and the team was a unit once again. I don't know why I did this, but I complimented the surgeon on the beautiful way he handled the situation. A nurse came over and whispered in my ear a few minutes later, "That was such a good thing you said. You know, just a couple weeks ago, he was sent to Happy Class to teach him how to manage his anger." He'd thrown a chair in the OR. Later that week, an anesthetist came to me to say, "How can you stay in peace when you're in such a toxic environment?" She informed me that the reason that hospital needed my help was that so many staff were so sick and tired of all the anger and the bitterness and the backbiting that they'd found jobs elsewhere. I shared with her that simple law of physics. This lady had been taking a short course entitled Working in a Toxic Environment. She had asked the teacher, "If I can't walk away, I'm stuck in the OR, how do I cope?" The teacher said, "Sorry, you're going to have to ask someone that you've seen who stays cool and calm in the middle of a crisis." And she said, "I've only seen you here for 2 months now, but I can tell you, you're the one person I know that stays calm in the crisis when the proverbial stuff has hit the fan." So I shared with her the law of physics. We can be the tuning fork, but it takes a determined awareness until it becomes a natural state of being. Think of a moment at home or at work when things got out of hand. Put yourself back in that situation and let it replay all over again, like you've just kind of flipped it back in time. There's no such thing anyway. So let's go back in time. Go into that situation and just be in a place of sweet equanimity. You've rewritten the script. I'm kind of liking this play. What's happening around you? Do you see the power of your chosen response? There is around each of us a toroidal wave of energy that's sourced from our heart. It energetically enters the frequency of anyone that gets near us. My heart energy, your heart energy, those toroidal waves of energy meet and they start their little fun circles together. Have you had the experience of walking up to someone only to be hit by a wave of disgust or fear? It's like the energy coming off of them just kind of did terrible things to your energy. Or you may walk up to somebody and just be hit with this sense of deep peace. How another person experiences your energy depends on what attitudes and thoughts that you are holding in your mind. You don't need to draw back or judge if you feel something wrong about the energy of another. You can just stay in peace. No judgment. Yeah, I see it. Something's going on that's not fun for them. I'm just going to be in love. And you know what? You get the opportunity to watch their energy shift. As you retune them, just resetting the carburetor. Each moment we tune our mind with an intimate experience with divinity, we come closer to the magnificent template with which we incarnated. The more we sit in God's frequency, the greater our capacity for accessing and living in wisdom, discernment, and great love in a chaotic world that is filled with so much pain. One would think that finding the power of our true self would have the potential for arrogance, but in actuality, it creates a quiet spirit that neither apologizes for who they are nor seeks the adulation. New York Times columnist David Brooks says, humility is low self-preoccupation, not low self-esteem. Galatians 5:22 and 23 reads, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Heck, people have been teaching this same stuff for eons, haven't they? And we still need it. When I take a slow in-breath and focus on the Holy Spirit, a divine source, my body is flushed with endorphins. I call it my Valium moment, and the greatest thing is, you can't overdose. When we are preoccupied with ourselves, our talents, our fans, our good looks, we are worshiping at the altar of self, and we are so separate from Source. Truth is, narcissism is toxic to your health, and it becomes toxic to those around you. Confidence without the desperate need for affirmation has just the opposite effect. Everyone around you feels safe. They feel calm. Just set aside a moment several times a day to breathe in God, and you are developing a steady state. Let's stop now and take 3 breaths, breathing in God. Allow yourself to feel the quiet confidence that fills you this moment. You breathe in God, and it's just a quiet confidence. Confidence is not pride. It's just ease. As we do this more and more often, this becomes our baseline expression. Gotta love it. We become the architect of our brain when we choose what thoughts consume our mind. Every thought informs and updates our neurons, axons, and dendrites. And thus, we're constantly changing the structure of our brain, whether you do it consciously or unconsciously. So we might as well do it consciously and make it part of our reprogramming. It takes only a moment to check in with your inner guidance, which is sourced from your connection to the cosmic Christ consciousness. In that slow, sweet in-breath, your questions will find answers, your mind a greater wisdom, and your heart a more boundless love. As our mind pauses to connect with God wisdom, our transformation is accelerated. The old tapes that played over and over lose their power. They're not even interesting anymore. As Dr. Leaf suggests, we are taken from trauma to freedom, from indecision to action. We're not paralyzed by doubt. From envy to celebration, confusion to clarity, frustration to anticipation, from being overwhelmed to being set free, from fear to courage, from suppressing issues to having the courage to face them, from numbness to freedom of emotional expression, from passivity to passion, from hopelessness to hope. Our authentic self, our original template, is a fractal of Prime Source. As we seek more and more of these quiet moments of connection, we will become a true reflection of divinity. We don't need any more New Year's resolutions. Our habits give way to a moment-by-moment experience of God expressed. As we prepare our minds for this important work, can you even imagine how you will fully express as a fractal of God? God's magnificence will be expressed in and through you. God's magnificence will be expressed through you. Synchronicities will occur more and more often. We have so much for which to be grateful. As we carry the frequency of Source Creator, the 75 to 100 trillion cells in our body will vibrate with abundant health. As you find yourself in sweet relationship with the Divine, as all else falls away, oxytocin is released in your brain. Peace settles over you. Toxic thoughts are neutralized. There is nothing but God in that moment. After writing this paragraph, I went into meditation and asked, God, I worked so hard to quiet my mind. How do I silence my thoughts? The answer came quickly, don't. I was stunned and I said, you're going to have to explain this one. I heard the chuckle and then the words, choose an emotion. Any emotion, but I suggest you make it a good one. Now take a deep breath. Let your consciousness slip into that emotion. As you do so, your concentration will be on the feeling and your mind will go to silence. Let's practice this. Pick an emotion that you like, be it joy, playfulness, reverence, whatever. Breathe deeply as you send that emotion into the universe. And it comes to you, it comes back stronger. It is as if some master electrician has wired your best emotions to Source. And when they connect with Source, Source sends them right back to you, but He's amplified the frequency. And does it feel good? Your mind doesn't even want to think right now because this is probably as close to a good high as you're going to get. rest in this bliss. It's yours, however often you wish to partake. Okay, we're going to take this to the next step. Pick out a situation in your life or in the world that needs help. Breathe God. Share your breath with the breath of Allah. This intimacy will stir you to the depths of your soul. You see, it doesn't matter what name we call God, Prime Source, Creator. I don't think there's a word we have in our vocabulary that it can express the vastness of Prime Source. So I stumble on words because I can't make it as big as it needs to be to express God. But express that feeling. Express the feeling of God. You don't have to have a word. And as it flows between you and Prime Source, that emotion just grows and grows within you. Now think of a troubling situation in the world and blow the frequency of that emotion into that trouble spot. I can't throw a lot of money at it, but I sure can take a few moments of time to send them love or joy. And divine intervention rides on that expression. I want you to spend a few moments in a place of gratitude and let that emotion grow in you as that little wiring between you and Prime Source creates a flow between your small emotion and the expansive emotion of Prime Creator. Ah, it feels so good. I'm so grateful for this moment. Now I'm going to take you one step deeper into the microcosm of our cells. This kind of is exciting for me. Light is a non-physical wave made up of quantum packets of energy which are called photons. Photons are found in the DNA inside every cell. The DNA itself vibrates at a frequency of several billion hertz a second. This vibration is caused by contractions of the coil-like structure of your DNA. So try to visualize this little DNA and it's just going zzz, and every time this coil of DNA contracts at several billion hertz a second, it squeezes out a biophoton. Now that's enough already to blow my mind, but then you multiply this times all the trillions of cells in your body. You've got a lot of light particles coming off of you. The sad thing is that if we're stressed, if we're angry or in fear, the DNA coils tighten, and you really can't vibrate when you're uptight. And so, you know what? There's not so much light around us. Interesting thing is, the biophotons that are emitted from your DNA, they have information in them. Everything that's going on in your DNA at that moment is coded into those photons. One single biophoton can carry more than 4 megabytes of information, and it relays this information across your biophotonic field of energy inside and outside your body. And I think this is why some people are empaths. They're actually able to read this information that's carried in the light particles in the patient's aura or the client's aura. I have to wonder if the tiniest photon can carry that kind of information. What happens to our energy field when we entrain the light photons from Prime Source? Whoa. Now, this is going to be coded with information as well. Dr. McCullough speaks of the light that is emitted by all living things. They tested the light and found it to be 1,000 times less intense than what can be seen with the naked eye, although a few individuals can see that light emitted as an aura. Scientists call this aura a biphotonic field. Now, since childhood, I have noticed auras around people, but it seems only to be when they're in a heightened state of joy or in deep peace. And that makes sense. Your DNA coils are loose, they're not all tightly wound, so they're vibrating faster, sending off more light particles. Can you imagine how much light is being emitted? During those moments, our energy has meshed with the frequency of God, be it in prayer or meditation, or in the status described in the Bible as the peace that passes all understanding. It is our simple trust that allows for a steady state of joy and peace. When our thoughts are fixed on gratitude for God's goodness, our life and health are blessed as a consequence. As a student of science, I can state that when the biophotons created by your DNA meet the rush of biophotons from God's presence, you become a living representation of the image of God. Your little fractal of God has become a body of light. Let's go to silence. Experience this biophotonic light from source. Feel it sending its quantum particles of information to every cell of your body. There is emerging. Wow, the gifts that come with these quantum packets of information coded into the light particles. My friend, you are experiencing the feeling of being a body of light. You are a great blessing to so many.